Hi, everyone. Welcome to the National Parents Union. You are watching the nightly restorative check-in, and I am Dr. Anjali Lafarie. It is Friday, September 11th. So there's a lot going on in relationship, right, to this day. I want to acknowledge, right, the day in history. I think September 11th for a lot of us is that moment where we just say it and we know where we all were, given the history of this date. I also need to acknowledge, on top of that tragedy, right? I have people in my life whose birthdays I've missed. So someone today and actually last week, I missed saying happy birthday to my sister-in-law, Graciela Carrera. So I want to say happy birthday to her. And then a friend, Adi Carson, I want to say happy birthday to him. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I am in Arizona in this beautiful Sonoran desert on Atham land. This show, the Nightly Restorative Check-In, is the brainchild of Marisol Queveda Rerucha. She is my comadre, someone that I love dearly. I can't even imagine my world without her. But anyway, I was originally one of her guests on the show, and she brought me on because I'm a hypnotherapist, a professor, a psychologist. And so the way that I understand, or at least maybe the way that I have interpreted what the nightly restorative check-in is about, is I think about Fridays as being kind of that wind down, right? Where somebody checks in on us, we have that connective conversation, especially thinking about parents, caregivers, educators. It's that end of that week where we get somebody really asks us how we're doing or how the week went, and we're able to relax and connect and kind of be filled up and nourished. So from the time that I was a guest on Marisol's show, or the first time that I was the guest, I introduced a breathing pattern titled 478. And so she still uses it today. So she hosts on Mondays and Wednesdays, right? And I take on the Friday show. So I want to maintain the integrity of that breath pattern because she has continued it. So people are used to it. It's actually one of my favorite breathing patterns. It has become one of my favorite. It wasn't at the beginning. But the way that 478 goes is you inhale for 4 breaths, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then you exhale for 8 seconds. And then we do that loop 4 times around. I will count it out for you so you don't have to keep track for yourself. I always suggest that you either close your eyes or like cast your eyes downward and pick a focal point if for some reason that's uncomfortable for you. This breath pattern is exceptionally effective if you have trouble sleeping, if you're anxious. I always share, the ways that I use this breath pattern is as I'm moving or transitioning from one thing to the next. It's really fast and efficient, and I'm able to kind of get calm and feel centered and just focus. I guess the last thing I want to say about the breath pattern is I think about it as like it's a way to arrive, right? It's a way to meet the next challenge, meeting, day, right? And the next thing that you have to accomplish. All right. Okay, so I always have to like take a deep breath for myself and get centered because it goes better that way. So start to get settled, right? Sit in your chair or wherever you find yourself in your bed. Cast your eyes downward if that's what you're doing, or close your eyes. And just start in by taking a natural breath. And then on your exhalation, as you inhale, breathe in for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. There you go. That felt actually really good. So return back to your normal breath. And I always tell you guys, I can kind of feel what's going on. Part of it is where I'm at. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm like slouched in my chair. I need to sit up. Okay. But anyway, I just can feel when it's more relaxing for you all. And even though I'm not doing it, what I am able to feel afterwards is I'm able to take a fuller breath even on my own accord. So yeah, we will sometimes, well, let me do this right now. Sometimes I tell you all about the ways that you know whether or not you've hit or recognize whether or not you have entered a relaxation response. If you can take a fuller breath, if you yawn, if your eyes are watery, if you feel like stretching, if your stomach growls, all these involuntary responses, these responses in your body that you don't control, if those are activated, that's one of the ways that you know that you've entered a relaxation response. Okay. I could teach you about that all day long, but let's not. So let me kind of finish introducing myself. Outside of who I am professionally, which is all that I've presented to you so far, my family and my community are really important to me. So I'm originally from Southern California. I came out to Arizona for graduate school and just life happened and I stayed, right? My father is Afro-Cuban. We're of Taino and Arawak descent, and my mother's from Guatemala, and so we are Maya. You all have met my amazing brother and sister. They were some of my original guests on the show. I'm also a mom to a 20-year-old. I want to say hi to her and tell her that I love her very much. And I'm also a widow, which is a really important familial identity for me. You've also met some people that relate to my collective. So, and I should say I don't own it. I'm a member of the Siwapatli collective. For the collective, we focus on indigenous mothering. So we talk about kind of addressing women's issues all the way from womb to tomb. So that perspective is often mirrored, right, in the things that I bring to you all. Okay, so for today, I'm going to bring in Vivett Dukes. She is the Northeast Regional Delegate for the National Parents Union, and she actually hosts one of her shows called Speak Your Truth. She's also I feel like she's my biggest fan. If you have ever watched the shows, Vivett is in the comments section. And so she's definitely like one of my best hype women. But professionally, right, she's a mom, she's a wife, she's a teacher, she's a writer, an educational consultant, and a public speaker. Her organization focuses on eradicating the school to prison pipeline and other forms of systemic educational and societal inequities. So I'm really excited to have Vivett on the show. We are colleagues, but we have become friends slowly but surely, and I love her energy. There's so many things. Girl, I love your outfit today. I love the colors. Anyway, we're just a little love fest whenever we are together. How are you?
Hi, I'm happy to be here tonight. Very happy, very honored actually. I just started my watch party on Facebook, and that's what I said, that I'm excited and honored to be here with you, and thankful to Marisol for creating and upholding this space for us to get together.
And actually, I need to say thank you. It's my honor. And I just love your energy. And you're like super chill right now, but you were turned up before. I actually, on the second time that I came on the show, that's actually how you and I met. And so I actually owe you, in some ways, a thank you, because so one of the things about doing work that is like direct service of psychological work or hypnosis, all those kinds of things where you work directly with clients, people don't really get to see your work, right? Because on my best days, the only other person who gets to see it is my client. So I actually, what I always say is that like God sees my work, and because you were on the show and you were so brave and willing to be a kind of work on an issue,
Yes.
I actually got to like show my work on screen or on Facebook Live, whatever this is. And that actually felt so good because I realized how I just don't get those opportunities. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Like that time, it was right around the time the coronavirus pandemic just started. It was like the second week. And at that point, I was just going through a lot emotionally, getting a bit frazzled. And I reached out to Marisol and she said, I have someone who you should talk to. I think it would be great, but would you mind doing it, live? I was like, no, it's fine. And I use the breathing technique to this day. It really helps. Like you helped me get back into breathing. It's something that I knew to do, but along the lines of life, I just forgot about those little things. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. They're so simple and effective though. Okay, so but we always start, right? So it's a check-in. I want to check in with you. So really, how are you? How are things going in your life right now?
For the most part, everything is well. I like to be a positive person in general. So even if things are not 100%, I'm still gonna find what is going well and focus on that. So I could talk about the first week back to school and remote, and all of that is going on, and still I'm in a good place. I made it through this week with my colleagues and preparing for students. So that felt good to get back in that swing. Right now, I'm really excited because my organization, I love to help people. And we've Speak Your Truth partnered. So we got this grant. And then as a result of the grant, we started getting more donations. So I posted like how we got a donation of books from Book Fairies. Then we got a donation of cozy socks and slippers from Silent Cry. And so tomorrow we partnered with the House of Judah and with legislator Sam Gonzalez. He's from Central Islip in Long Island. I'm from New York. And so tomorrow we get to go out in the community and have a fair where people can come, socially distance, of course, with math. I feel like we have to say that for
because not everybody's doing it. Yeah,
everyone's doing it, but we will do it. And I get to give out books and socks and just help families that I know will really appreciate it. So that is very exciting to me. Take the focus off of my life and focus on helping other people. So I have a lot of work to do, and I was doing the work before I started the show. And I'll show you. I'll give you a sneak peek, guys.
Okay. Well, and that's so who you are. I mean, just that what you said, that's how I know you, right? To be a help and to also just be so positive. Go ahead, show us.
No, these are little, cutesy slippers. I mean, they're not going to school, but they need back to school slippers.
They need your joy is what they need. Go ahead.
Right. Need some nice socks, a little, slip-ons, little socks. Maybe that could be for Mama Bear. That could be for another girl. Can't forget our boys. Oh, the nice cozy. They're so cozy and warm. And then maybe there's a little baby boy in the family. He could get little socksies too. So I'm so excited.
Well, obviously it's like it's palpable, like I can feel it, right? And I just imagine that that's exactly like everything that you do, you do it with that level of joy and excitement, so like whether it's the organization Speak Your Truth, whether it's your show, whether it's teaching, I can just imagine like what a light you are for everyone. So what level do you teach?
I'm teaching 9th grade English this year. At a new school, new environment. So that's part of the angst that I don't want to feed into, but imagine being a new teacher. I'm not a new teacher, but new to this school, and then to be remote. So I'm really wanting the essence of who I am and my pedagogy to transfer, to the online space. But I teach 9th grade English.
I do, and I understand the concern, right, around am I bringing it? Are my students feeling me, right? You know, because that's definitely how I feel. Like a video can only do so much and emails can only do so much. So we're all of us that are educators and parents, right? We're all in this such a big time of change, you know, and questioning like, am I coming through? And then also I imagine like a lot of us are in this space of, what am I doing? Do I like what I'm doing? What's this new world that we're stepping into, right?
Yes. It feels really strange for me because I am such a people person. Like even when I was just at the supermarket earlier and I'm talking to people and some people looking at me like I'm weird, and then other people are like welcoming the conversation as well. But I don't know, it's odd to be out and not connect with people. It's hard not to connect with people, period.
Yes.
I'm not, touchy feely, like, hi, how are you? I'm very much like that. And now it's like, and it feels odd.
Well, even so, I would say I've learned in this pandemic that I'm not a touchy-feely, not as touchy-feely as I thought I was. I don't ever think I thought it was extreme, but I thought it was more affectionate. And so then what is interesting is when I meet people and there's some sort of closeness that I naturally want to hug them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so weird to not hug. So I feel you.
So when we meet in person, you're going to want to hug me. That's what you're saying. That's what
Of
I.
course. That's not a question, but I mean, we've already talked about that. But anyway, you already know. Like, you already know how much I enjoy you.
I think we're related. You have Jamaican roots somewhere. I think we're related. Just putting that out there.
I accept it. We all are related. So that's not even a question. I moved away here too quickly from the fundraiser. So tell us really fast, because you have something, kind of tell people where they can go tomorrow if they're in your area for the fundraiser.
Yes, so it's going to be from like 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. in Central Islip, the TGIF parking lot, so that way we have lots of room to be socially distant. Um, and so there'll be gospel music playing, and we'll have giveaways of hand sanitizer. I have lots of books. I have hundreds of books that I'll be giving away, like really good news, reference books, children's dictionaries, thesauruses, how does that work?
Somebody write in the chat if you're smart, and you know how to pluralize thesaurus. Do that.
Yes, I'm not sure, says the English teacher. I don't know. Groceries are going to be given away as well. Like, I've been in fell on hard times in my life before, so I know what it is to receive, to go to these functions. I've gone with my children. I know what it is to get beautiful, brand new things and to be so grateful. And I just really want to give that back, because those were times where I know that prayers of mine were being answered. There's no doubt in my mind, and each bag I'm praying over it, like, God, just please help that whoever gets this bag, it will be for them. It will be the right little baby will need that, because I don't know who's going to get what, and I just want that. So it's going to be a fun time tomorrow. Come out if you're anywhere in the Long Island, Suffolk County, Central Islip area. And that area is super important to me because it is heavily impacted by mass incarceration. In terms of neighborhoods on Long Island, it probably has the highest rate of not only the school to prison pipeline, but the school to deportation pipeline, which is really huge in Suffolk County, because we have a large immigrant population from Central America predominantly. And so I know it's going to help, and that's like the energy you feel from me. But that's what's going on tomorrow. And a super shout out to the House of Judah, who was gracious enough to allow us to partner with them, and to legislator Sam Gonzalez. I don't know him that well. I've had the chance to be around him, and I just like what he's doing in his community. I want people to act. The talk is cute, but people need help. Like, they're not going to want to hear from you if you're not coming with something that they need. So, yeah.
And you're a model for both of those things. So even, I ascribe to, and I think in some ways, I see this quote being lived out in my life, that some of the people who experience the greatest amount of pain are the ones who like exude the most joy and are the most helpful, and you definitely fit that. And then also you fit the compliment that you're giving, right? You're a local official there of acting, you know, you're a doer. So I wish all the best for your fundraiser tomorrow, and encourage all of you who are watching and nearby to support. And I'm guessing also that they can support you in other ways, right? Through financial support. So do you want to throw out your website? And then I'm going to ask Judith. I have Judith in the chats. Like, so you guys, we all just help each other. They have these different hosts. So if you could write in, or somebody could write in her website, that would be amazing. So what is the website?
It's www.speakyahtruth.org.
Nice, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about, yeah, so you have, I was gonna say taken up the mantle of mass incarceration, and that's like actually feels like too much like to say, because that's a lot, but I know that word is important. Is important on your site. I don't want to remove that word from you because you're not doing it. I want to remove that word for you because that's a big burden. And the way that you pray and those intentions that you put into those bags, I think language is really important. So your organization focuses on eradicating mass incarceration in that school to prison pipeline. Tell us of why. How did that become a passion and a calling?
Wow. So it's not just my organization. My husband, John, and I started it together. It's really important that I honor him with that, because he took my work with mass incarceration from theory to lived experience. So I've always just really been interested in prison, what happens to people when they go to prison, why do people go to prison. I had brushes with the criminal justice system in my teens and early 20s. And, one situation can really change your life. And I found that out early on, and now it's like water under the bridge. But what if I today was still being judged by something I did at 19? And so I had that in my heart. That was always, I used to say, oh, I would love to like teach on Rikers Island, or because I would meet like a lot of really very super smart, intelligent people. And then in talking to them, it would just kind of get thrown in like, yeah, I did a bid. Or yeah, I was locked up. And I'm like, wait, pause, talk to me about that for a minute. And yeah, so it's like that. And I think like our society is somewhat intrigued by prison. That's all the shows that we have on TV about it and stuff. So I was very much a part of that. Then my first 4 years working in the Department of Education, I worked at a school, Eagle Academy for Young Men of Southeast Queens. Shout out Eagle 3, love always. And that school, there was a system of schools erected for the purpose of counteracting the school to prison pipeline. So for all Black and brown boys placed in feeder neighborhoods. So in New York State, there are 7 neighborhoods that basically provide all of the bodies who are housed in prison. And I worked in one of those neighborhoods, which is Southeast Jamaica, Queens. And so I got to see really now like how the education system is very geared towards ushering our Black boys and girls, our brown boys and girls into prison. Minor thing that, because I worked on Long Island prior to that in a white affluent neighborhood. And so I saw the differences, like, oh, in that school, that would have just been a, don't do that again. Where in this system, it was like detention, suspension, parents getting called, like missing a lot of days of school. Like, what's that about? So now I entered it in a different way. Still hadn't started Speak Your Truth yet. And then I was out at a summer fair, like in a park, Eisenhower Park. And I saw a friend that I hadn't seen in a long time. And he said to me, you know who always asks for you? And I was at a point in my life where I was very like, I'm just working on me. I don't want to hear about any guys. Like that right there was a trigger. Yes, in the box. So once he said that, I'm like, the attitude went up. I was like, well, who in this day and age is not, can't find me on social media? That means I don't want to be found. I'm probably blocked there behind. That's why they can't find me. So all of that came out.
Now you're telling the truth. Okay, good.
Yes. And so he looked at me like, He was like, John. I was like, John, who? I was thinking of another John. I won't say the last name. I did not want to be found by him. No.
Okay, yeah, stay with one John, yeah. Okay,
yes. And then, but my response still didn't match the way he knew me to be with John. So he was like, no, Johnny. So I was like, no lie. This was my response, reenactment. I was like, Johnny? Johnny Dukes? Like, hold on.
50s commercial. Yeah, okay.
It was like a total like, oh. Then I felt really badly, like, dag, I forgot about my friend. Because I knew he had gone to prison. I knew why he went. I knew like his story. He was my really good friend. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens when people go to prison. They get forgotten about a lot of times, and so that started the ball of us talking and writing and communicating. Went up to visit him. 9 months later, we got married. We just celebrated our 4th wedding anniversary. The first 3 of those years, he was incarcerated. So then now my experience went to deeply personal, because now I was visiting him in prison and going through that system and seeing the ill treatment and that was given to me just as someone who chose to love and support someone who was incarcerated. And it was very hard, very difficult, very painful. And on one particular visit, like this CO just kept messing with us. I felt that she was.
Let's define CO.
Oh, correctional officer. Yeah, so, and messing, like, so there are a lot of things that can throw a visit off. So for example, what I have on now wouldn't be acceptable because this is considered a plunging neckline. Even though this is something I would literally wear to church. It's no problem, it's pretty long, they'll cleave it. So things like that when you're preparing can really just throw the whole visit off. In this case, it was sitting so close to the front. And I just felt like, why is she doing that? And I was like very upset that day. And at the same time, Dr. Anjali, I was at a very happy time in my life overall because I was in love. And so I was like, John, I wish she would come over here, getting on my nerves. I was riled up, real rah-rah. And he was like, no, that's not what you want. What you really, the truth is that you really just want her to leave us alone. And he tapped into something in me like, this truth thing, we need to explore that. And so I was telling people like I wasn't telling people about my relationship, but they could see that I was really, something was different about me, but I was ashamed because of the fact that he was in prison. And I had the audacity to say to John one day, like, so what do I tell people when they like ask about you or something, which is very rude because I'm telling him that I'm not telling people about him. And he was like, Vivett, you have to learn your truth, own your truth, and then speak your truth. Yeah. And that's how Speak Your Truth was born from that. Like he caused me to really start doing that work. And once I started speaking my truth, people started coming out the woodworks like, oh, I have a brother who's locked up, a sister who's locked up, a mother who's locked up, not making light of it, but just like, well, where were all of you all along? What the heck was I hiding for? I would have been out. And that's how Speak Your Truth got formed, where I saw a need, like, okay, there's a community here that's not represented, so let's go.
There's so much in there. So one, I want to honor like your husband, and I really like love watching your show and watch, especially when the two of you are on, and the way that you all, just your connection, and it's, it's so interesting. There's a way that I almost want to like thank you for your bravery, but then that feels wrong because like you just fell in love, right? And so why do we, both of you just fell in love, like why do we acknowledge I don't know, why do I feel the need to even put anything extra on it? Yes, the circumstances are challenging, but I think it's because, like you said, we think about it as like that's, I don't even know if we think about it like it's wrong, unconventional. I'm not sure, but so I want to thank you, but I don't exactly know what I'm thanking you for. It does feel very brave to me though, and I think I want to acknowledge like the sacrifice that really both of you made to get to the place of having this relationship and this beautiful marriage. So yeah, that's one part of it, and then the beautiful story for like how it came to be, and us checking. I think what I'm trying to model, even in like me expressing myself to you right now, is like modeling like, why do we think that? What's that colonization, that thing that like sits on us? What's that shame, right? What are those feelings that sit on us that tell us that something that is very normal and natural, right, are not okay, and normal and natural to be human, normal and natural to see humanity in people, regardless of the conditions, upon which they find themselves in, whether it was of their own doing or not. Like, we all make mistakes, right?
Yeah. And I think that's part of it, that people, there's a disconnection between there's a disconnection between the crime that the person may have committed and their humanity. And so that's where the shame comes in, and that's why it was very difficult for people. I mean, I had all sorts of reactions once I came out. And I do feel like it was a kind of like I outed myself. Like, I literally came on social media and just did a post like, I'm married. And he's locked up, and people are like, married? We didn't even know you were seeing anybody. Like, what? What the
So
what?
you're off the market for any point in time, yeah.
Yeah, so it was just like a big, and I saw from an experience just through talking with people, other women who are much braver than me. Like, I'm talking about women that, and I can only speak about the women, wives who are, married to men who are incarcerated, because that's my experience. I think bravery is the right word. Some might say they're stupid, but I knew better. I know better. They're not foolish at all. They have a deep commitment, sacrificial, long suffering. There's a different focus. There were times when I would get very frustrated because of the inhumane treatment I was getting, and me really having to like shut my mouth, because if I said anything even a little bit off, the correctional officers had the ability to terminate my visits, and I didn't want that. So when I saw women doing this for 5 years, 10 years, 13 years, 20 years, and they would just tell me, like, you got to keep focused on why you're here. Because there are no distractions. I need to be clear. Like, our dating was like 4 to 5 hour visits in the prison visiting room. No movies, no dinner, no snacks from the vending machines, and just sitting there talking
No
to
Netflix and chill, yeah.
no Netflix and chill, mama. We're just talking. But like, if you can really do that without the distractions, you go deep. You get to really know a person and learn each other. So there is a level of bravery there for sure.
Well, and I think, one of the parts that, I'm being cautious with my words, but that make, I don't know, help me maybe even understand the connection as well, is that you all knew one another prior, and so there already was a connection. It just so happened that at the time that the connection was maybe like fortified, right? That, he happened to be, right, incarcerated at that time. But yeah, I mean, it's just, we all are in different places, right, in our life when the connection happens. It's just where it occurred for you all.
John is always so shocked when I tell him the response that I had to just like hearing his name. He's like, I didn't realize like I had that impact on you. Like, yeah, we were really good friends. And as teenagers, when you can find a guy who's not like trying to push up on you and get in the drawers, who's just on some like, oh, you're a nice girl, we talk, we chill. Plus, he had a girlfriend. Plus, his girlfriend was my friend. So, but that doesn't stop, you know, people, especially at any age. I won't even quantify it or qualify it by age, but he was just always very committed to his relationship. Like a very upstanding guy, a very nice guy. That's how I remember him. Really sweet, us talking on the bleachers and like hanging out and feeling really safe with him. Like I didn't have to be guarded or wonder, like, is this dude trying to get at me? It was always just like mad sweet. And so if it wasn't, I wouldn't have gone up and visited him because that's not, as intrigued as I was not trying to go there to visit anyone.
For sure. I'll add to some of this and give some pointers from my perspective. So as far as like, it's really refreshing when somebody doesn't immediately go for just trying to push up. Like, so I appreciate people's honesty about, you know, how you feel and your attraction, and then let's find all the other points of connection. So I'm gonna, you know, just help you guys out, you know, give you some advice. So it sounds like, you know, that's essentially what it was, right? He saw other parts of you than just your beauty, you know, and really what I heard from what you guys were talking about, he saw your light, you know, and he was willing to like cultivate and bring that out of you, to support you.
And I saw his too, always have, and I think that's what keeps our marriage going because it's hard. Marriage is hard. I will never sit up here in front just because y'all don't hear me talking about all the details. That's because I have to cover my marriage and protect my marriage, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not for public consumption in every way. But be clear that marriage is difficult. No, even without having a husband who did time in prison, like it's challenging. But with John, he does push me in a loving way to be my best. And that is what I really love and appreciate about him. And he's very patient with me. And I think his time in prison taught him
Yes.
a level of patience that I wouldn't want to learn it, not that way.
Well, and like you said, even when you were talking about the story when, you know, you were getting kind of like annoyed by the CO, by the correctional officer, how, you know, you wanted to, you know, like do something about it, but he had that peace, right? Of like that surrender is almost what I think about it, that acceptance of like, hey, sadly, there's a certain, I imagine, and that I imagine that there's a certain level of surrender that you learn of like, what am I really gonna, what can I control? How am I going to, you know, respond? When the only thing that I can control is my reaction, and not giving away, you know, our energy, not giving away our own peace.
And his ability to see ahead, because when you have all this time to do, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, this moment right now to like get your rocks off and whatever you want to do, yell at her, whatever, like what, think 10 steps ahead. What is that going to do? And ultimately that's not what I wanted. So it's like, okay, then reel it back in.
Yeah. Keep the end in mind. That's actually that's a quote from my husband, my late husband. He used to always say that. That was I would say like his motto, you know, of, and I, something I admired, when people can keep kind of that larger goal in perspective even in these small moments. Let's so where, like, what are you all doing right now as an organization, you know? So tell us, like, in really tangible ways, that what are some of the ways that you all address, you know, that school to prison pipeline?
Well, most recently we were awarded a grant, which was really amazing, from the National Parents Union. I created a curriculum that's very Afrocentric and indigenous based for families who are homeschooling, with this emphasis particularly on families who may be impacted by incarceration, who are homeschooling, who need additional support. And so that's one thing we did that's really great, getting them access to Hulu and Disney Plus, because those little things really make a big difference. Financially, having a loved one who's incarcerated can really drain you
Mm.
and really put you in a lower financial bracket because you constantly have to give money. And so we really just wanted to provide a little ease. And I think that's what our goal is at Speak Your Truth, to bring awareness to, like, okay, everything you see on TV is not real. Here's a real couples and families experience with incarceration. That's number one. So to humanize the people who are incarcerated, and then to change laws. We partner with the Osborne Association, who are very active in criminal justice reform, to work on changing legislation in New York State. We work with Bianca Tylik and Martine Garcia from Worth Rises. So really working on like changing laws, legislation that impacts families who are affected by incarceration. So we're like a link, I would say. We give you links to pro bono lawyers, to food pantries, to other organizations that can just help you throughout this journey. And then obviously as a teacher, that is a part of my social justice work, making sure that I am informing this generation, everyone who I can, about our decisions and just what happens to certain people when they make a mistake. They go a wrong way in life. So, and John is super, his life is really what spawned all of this. So we go to speaking engagements. We do a lot of work wherever we are. We just try to make sure that voice. And the National Parents Union, I'd say our work is really making sure, as we think about parents, are we thinking about parents who are incarcerated or perhaps are re-entering and are finding ways to reacclimate themselves into their children's lives? Are we a support for them? Because they need a lot of support. I need a lot of support. It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, I want to validate, just again, like your strength and your vulnerability by saying, right, how hard it is. And, kind of like group segments, right, of our population that we just, like you said, we don't think of. Even you said this a while ago, like when somebody brought up, right, your husband before he was your husband, it's like you kind of had forgotten about him, right, because he was out of the picture, right? And so the consequence, right, the consequence of incarceration is forgetting. And that's, that's a horrible consequence, because if people need help, we should be able to deliver it to them. They should be visible. And then once people, right, pay their debts, then they should be able to reintegrate and be visible without all that shame, which is, I think, a big part of your organization, right, is trying to do.
To dispel the shame, to break away stereotypes of what we may think someone who's incarcerated looks, acts, feels, moves, behaves like. And likewise, what their family is going through. There are a lot of families who don't say anything because, we don't want people on our jobs to know, or, what if the clergy found out, or, so many, but meanwhile, it touches every aspect of life. There is no one who is not impacted by mass incarceration.
Absolutely. I mean, there, yeah, I'm trying to not like steal and take away too much from your story, but I mean, I can think of family members, right? I can think of my daughter. So I'll share this piece. So for some of you that don't know, I did not birth my daughter, right? So she came into my life. And I was in a relationship with her father, and her father was actually previously incarcerated for 14 years of his life. And so I met him when he was out, and I met him kind of on the public, as he was a public speaker. And through that experience, right, of him sharing who he was, it took time. It took like a significant amount of time before he and I got together. But when he did, that relationship resulted in his daughter becoming my daughter. So I think also you feel my caution because, I wasn't there for the toughest parts, right? But there's some connection to hearing and understanding, right, what some of those circumstances were. And I certainly see the impact on my daughter's life, even through her mom as well, and some of their relationship and their contacts with the system.
Definitely. And, as a teacher, students started to come out to me
Yeah.
and share with me that they had a parent or a loved one who was incarcerated. And it really hurt my heart to think about how many students I had who had, a family member who was incarcerated, and how much that played into their academic lives,
Mm-hmm.
their social lives in school. I know for myself, Mondays were hard, especially if it was a weekend where we had a visit, especially if the visit was that Sunday, so it was still very fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And missing him was very fresh. I think about the students who, like, I had to take this call, and teachers could be like, put your phone down, but I know what it is to be like, I got to take this call, it's my husband, I can't call him back, and he may not be able to call me back, and I don't know why he's calling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything was so life or death and so dire and so like this, all the time, that it has really shaped who I am as a teacher so much more deeply, because there were a population of students that I wasn't aware of, even though I worked in the school erected for, to eradicate the school to prison pipeline, but still I wasn't connected like that, to show you, like, you can be in a space and working towards the betterment and the good, but still be disconnected.
And I agree with you as that when we're able to share, willing to kind of share this content, whether it's through personal means or whether it's through like educational means. So I teach about mass incarceration and its impacts in my diversity courses. Inevitably, I always have students kind of walk up to me at the end of that lecture, right? Or it's a series of lectures, and they'll some of my students even shared, like, I was incarcerated for this point in time, or my family members were, and so that I think they're even surprised that they get to be represented right in the content, and hopefully they feel represented in a way that isn't putting them in a box, in a way that's kind of explaining a fuller picture. Especially, I think I agree, and it's so important to make the links back to education, right? You said something about, like, that people just make a mistake, but when Black and brown kids make the mistake, right? And I'm saying kids, even young adults, it has much more, a greater cost, a differential cost for
It's like
them.
they're not allowed to be kids. That's really what I see. It's like they're not allowed to make errors in life and still recover from them. And then the length of the sentence, if you think about it, I met men who were incarcerated at the age of 16 and came out at 36.
Mm. And so
So
your whole youth, yeah, exactly,
your
your
whole
whole.
youth, your whole, like, that's all gone. And then it's not like they've really been getting the rehabilitation that they need in terms of counseling and, whatever is needed to re-enter, like, even not knowing how to work a computer, not ever seeing a smartphone. Babies come out the womb pretty much knowing how to operate a smartphone in this day and age. So that frustration and just being around, like, Dad, 20 years for something you did at 16? That seems harsh to me. Like, that seems like a long time to get it right.
Well, and also, and 20 years for something that someone else doesn't get 20 years for, in 20 years for a system that, I can, like, we can all repeat the movie 13, 20 years for something that maybe you weren't actually convicted of, right? It was more financially plausible for you to complete, for you to, like, admit to this, because you just knew that you kind of had no chance to like prove yourself in a court of law.
It is the new Jim Crow. It is modern slavery. It is a very destructive part of our society, and it hurts us. It hurts Black and brown communities especially. There are whole sections of, like, East New York, Brooklyn, like, gone, like, because it's where you from? Where you from? Oh, Brooklyn. Where Brooklyn at? And it's like, so all of these dudes right here from Brooklyn.
Mhm.
Oh, And that's just who is in the visiting room, not to mention the tears in the prison. Like, so that whole neighborhood, those are people's dads, husbands, sons. I saw mamas coming up there like early, bringing bags. I'm like, yo, this is hurting us.
Well, and it's a replication of a disillusion of the family, right? Not valuing, right, Black and brown families. And I would say, and also immigrant families. So, you know, as you said, your organization has made some connections to like the prison to deportation pipeline, right? So this is like before I get too geeked, like this is what systemic oppression is, right? When you can see one system working with one community and then the same system is replicated or the same tools are replicated with another population, right? So it's why you should pay attention, and the fact that we don't pay attention because we think that people made a mistake and deserve to like, you know, not be, their story doesn't deserve to be attended to. We also stop paying attention to the systematic process. So whenever people talk about systemic oppression, systemic racism, like this is what we're talking about, how the same systems are replicated across different groups. So make that connection for us. How are you seeing it in the school to deportation pipeline?
Well, I'm seeing, first of all, that certain people are targeted, certain students are targeted. So you could be a young Latinx girl walking to school, and you may be stopped by ICE because you have on a Chicago Bulls hoodie because you like Michael Jordan, and they're aligning that with you being a part of a gang. So that was the probable cause, right? Like the stop and frisk. That was the way that they could get to stop you, detain you. They being the police, stop you and detain you. Police are also in the school, so now they don't even have to talk to you on your way into school. Just the mere look of the school is very, having seen both environments, the look of the school is a very similar to the look of the prison, as aesthetically speaking. The
Sure.
colors, that muted gray and green, and the bars on the window, like almost the same thing. The ways in which one infraction becomes this paper trail. So almost like, well, once you do something and you get that 5 years probation, chances are you're looped in now. Something else is going to happen. Same thing, once you get detention turns into in-school suspension, turns into out-of-school suspension, turns into, you know, superintendent suspension, turns into 30, 60, 90, 100 days of missed school, turns into now I'm not going to school, turns into so now I'm doing crime or getting in trouble. And it all feeds into each other. And we play a role in it because we buy from people who are feeding this prison industrial complex. And then once you're involved in it, you kind of don't have a choice, because if you want to stay connected, these entities, you have to get through them in order to get to your loved one, and you'll pretty much do whatever it takes. So that's how they eat off of us. Literally, people are eating off of our communities, fattening their pockets. The blood, sweat, and tears and lives of our children, our mothers, our fathers, our brothers and sisters. There were very few, I can count on one hand how many white people I saw visiting John in prison. They were all Black and brown, every single last one. There's a problem there.
And you know, some other things too that we're not talking about are the connections to two things. One, like the comorbidity. So comorbidity is just a fancy word for saying two things going on at the same time, right? The comorbidity of mental health issues, right? And also substance abuse issues, whereas those, that does not have to be addressed through prison, right? Through any kind of detainment. And again, it depends on who you are, right? So Sarah Burton, she's an amazing author, right? Who talks about, so she's a woman, right? Who was incarcerated for essentially what was a drug a problem with substance use, right? But then it wasn't until she encountered individuals in other communities nearby, right? So in Santa Monica in California, she encountered individuals in other communities. I was like, oh, white people go to rehab, right? And like Black folks go to jail, right? So we have choices. We have, as a society, we have choices as to how we're going to respond to situations. And then to your point, we also have choices. We have choices about how tax dollars are spent. So is a tax dollar spent for the officer in the school, or tax dollars spent for like enrichment programs and computers? Like that's a choice, that's a choice that society makes dependent upon each community that significantly impacts the trajectory of the children, which is how the school to prison and school to deportation pipeline occur.
And the traumas are not addressed. That's the biggest thing that I noticed as I started speaking not only with my husband, but getting to know the people there, because you build a little family. You're going on visits, every week, sometimes multiple times a week. You get to know people. And almost every person that I had the honor of speaking with linked something back to their education. Something happened in school. It's like every single story. Something happened in school, a teacher that turned them off, a situation that happened, a trauma that happened in their lives that was never addressed, that caused them to act in certain ways. And instead of receiving the help they needed, like whether it was rehab or just someone to talk to, they were, and I have to go back to school because school is where we spend the bulk of our time outside of our homes from a very young age. We put our children in school sometimes at 6, 8 weeks old, they're in a daycare center.
Yes.
If they're around people who don't really see your child as a loving baby, someone who's a human, then it's like, oh, they're bad. They're bad? Well, what's going on with them? They might be bad, but what happened to get them in that place? And then if they end up in prison, it's like, well, at no point in time is the trauma going to be addressed, because prison is more trauma on top of trauma.
Yeah, so my daughter's husband used to always say that for him, prison was like an exercise in alleviating boredom, right? The amount of nothing that was being done, that like, okay, I'm here, so now like let me do something to either help myself or help others, right? And just that attempt to alleviate boredom. I also, gosh, there was a point that I wanted to make too. Oh yeah, as far, and then also you're talking about like funding, right? So when people don't see our kids, when people don't see our kids in our communities, this is when we hear people talk about like divesting funds, pushing funds into programs that are helpful as opposed to pushing funds into programs that are punitive, right? Or that look to pathologize or see what's wrong with somebody, what's in quotes, right? And I'm a psychologist, like we're the ones who do this. So I'm calling out my field, right? Instead of seeing what's wrong with someone, instead of what their strengths are, what the strengths of the community are, and then what can be done to kind of shift the emphasis in that community. We're very like rapidly here running out of time. Like the whole hour has almost gone. In fact, like it has gone, but I want to give you the opportunity to kind of, wrap this up. And like, what's the take home point for others that are listening? And I want to acknowledge that there's some people who are being really vulnerable in the comments. And so I appreciate all of you. And I appreciate even your listening. I can feel the listen, But what's your take home point? If you wish people knew one thing about your life experience or your work, what would that be?
I think it would be that um, everything that I do is interrelated and it's all a work of heart. This is working very much, but it all comes from here. And if we can tap more into here and align what's here with what's here, our heart in our head, my heart in my head, that is when I can really thrive and be my best to help, to give back. Um, my life is not just for me, it's for the people that I encounter. And that's not just true for me, I believe it's true for all of us. And this work is it's very difficult because it really is my life. Like I told you guys, I went from reading about things to teaching about things to living it. So just to see how everything came together like this, it's deeply personal, deeply personal.
Thank you. Thank you for the time that you took to come up with that response, like where it was deep. It wasn't just off the cuff, you know? And I want to amplify even from like the people in my life, you know, that I have an elder who recently reminded us that with like true wisdom is, and I'm gonna not gonna say this perfectly, but that true wisdom is the connection between your heart and head, you know, and that we all have like so much to do with being able to connect that. So thank you for being an example of that for us in this hour, in this moment, you know, and all the times and ways that people interact with you, you and your husband. And I wanted to also say, you know, you talked about covering your marriage and just how important that is, and covering your family. And so, you know, I just want you to know that that's something that I'm going to pray about for you too, because I could feel the sincerity and the importance of that. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. All right. There's no, you know, there's no light and easy, good feeling way, you know, to kind of move away from this other than, you know, just Vivett's light and what she shared with us. So thank you so much. Please share this information. Please share these videos. I will be back on Friday. You can join Marisol on Monday and Wednesday. You can also, Vivett, when are your shows are on Monday and Thursday, right? At
Monday, Thursday, 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
and here via right via the National Parents.
National Parents Union, right here.
Yeah, we're all the cool people are here. So
Yes.
okay, go. All right. Have a good weekend, everyone. We will see you later. Bye bye.
Bye.